Alright, hello, my name's Ned, and I'm going to start doing a little mini series about Worlds and just some of my thoughts on the particular teams and matchups and how I think things are going to shake out and how things theoretically could shake out. And to start, I'm going to talk about how G2 kind of screwed themselves over by their poor showing at MSI. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole debate of whether they should have practiced or how hard they should have practiced or even how they played at the fucking tournament. What I want to talk about is how their past actions now affect the present state of Worlds, because it's pretty interesting if you think about the easy group they could have gotten had they not gotten a second seed spot for Europe. So let's think it over. So at MSI, G2 was the first place team who got sent to MSI, and they were projected. They looked pretty good in Europe and then in a domestic sense, and so there was a pretty good chance that they could have certainly should have beat the LMS region and even could have beat the North American region, even though CLG had an amazing showing at the tournament. So I'm not so sure that would have happened, but at the very least they should have beat the Flash Wolves. But what ended up happening is they lost and they got knocked out, and because of that, at Worlds, they no longer secured a first seed position for Europe. So the highest any European team can get is a second seed, which is interesting because in previous tournaments, that mm, unfortunate circumstance was lended to the LMS region because they were, I guess, considered to be a weaker region, even though they've been competing on equal terms for almost every world championship now. So, but at MSI they earned their spot. They beat G2 because G2 didn't practice. Whatever, it's not important. But so G2 then gets put into this group with Rox, CLG, and Alvix Nox Luna. Okay, so Rox Tigers, a clear favorite to win the Worlds, I think, the whole championship. So that's unfortunate that right away they get put in the first place, put in the group with the first place team from Korea. Um, and admittedly, CLG and Albus Nox are not hard matchups. CLG, you could argue it wasn't even the third best team in North America, probably the fourth after um, Immortals, but they qualified through their circuit points via the spring split, and that's fine. I don't want to get in debates about that. And then, but they're probably one of the weaker teams in the whole tournament. I would put them maybe on an even playing field with somebody like Splice, or depending on how well H2K plays, and then just above the wildcard teams. And I would probably have them lose to Flash Wolves and maybe even AHQ Esports. Uh, so that they're not very difficult competition, and Albus Nox is a wild card team, so oftentimes doesn't they don't have a good showing. I don't know anything about any of the wild card teams, but you can assume because they're a wild card team, they're not going to be that great. No, I don't think any wild card team has ever made it out of the group stage. So what's interesting is this would be a very easy group if Rocks Tigers was not in it. Now that's an interesting thought because G2, had they gotten a first seed, secured a first seed spot for Europe at MSI, they would be occupying that first spot in the group, which means that Rocks Tigers would not be in it. And had they earned this first seed spot in the group, it's likely that the Flash Wolves would not have. The LMS would not have earned the region. So that means that G2's group could have been if they had um, if they had secured their first seed spot at MSI, it could have been G2, Flash Wolves, CLG, and Albus Nox, which would have been the easiest group for any team in the whole thing. Some other theoretical groups they could have got. The hardest one would have been instead of Rocks Tigers, they would then have to play SKT because they're the second seed from Korea. And then I think the second hardest would have been to play against RNG. And all of those three scenarios could have happened. But clearly, they would rather play against RNG or or was it Flash Wolves than or even SKT, I think, than Rocks Tigers. Like all of those are easier matchups, I would argue. So you can see how they really screwed themselves coming out of coming out of MMSI. Now I'm also going to talk about it because it's clear to me that they're going to have a pretty easy time of securing second place in this group. So now I'm going to look at who they're going to have to play if they secure second place. So A2 plays C1. So now the Group C has AHQ, H2K, Edward Gaming, and INS Esports. And I think unless Edward Gaming shows up and shits the bed, they're going to have an easy time getting first place in this group. It's also a pretty easy group for them. So now they're going to have to play Edward Gaming. But had they gotten an easy group and got first place, C1 would play against A2, which means... Oh wait, no, I mean A1 would play against D2, which means that would actually be a difficult matchup as well, I think, because then they would either be playing against TSM, Samsung Galaxy, or Royal Never Give Up. Most likely, either TSM or Samsung is going to earn second seed in that group. So that would actually be a difficult matchup no matter what. But still easier than Edward Gaming, who's probably, some people would argue, the second best team at the tournament, and other people would argue third best. But most people say they do have a chance to win the whole thing. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to leave off this video. It's just kind of short thoughts about G2 screwing themselves over at MSI because they could have had an easy group and maybe could have gone deeper into the tournament than I'm projecting them to go now. But thanks for watching. Bye.